Hello. Today is the Thursday after Ash Wednesday, here at the very beginning of Lent. And before I even get to the readings, I'm reminded of something that years ago here in the parish we had a lay leaders gathering, and one of the members of the parish council actually stood up front and had a personal reflection, just to start our day and to begin the conversation. And he started off by talking about his experiences in the past of Lent and what this season has meant or has not meant to him. And he talked about this idea that I think so many of us can identify with the idea of having a good Lent versus a Lent that's not so good. It's not that horrible things happen in the bad Lent. It was that there's the good Lent, that experience that I can certainly identify with, those years where I just feel like I'm very plugged in, where I'm aware of this liturgical season, that I'm taking the time to in prayer and to listen, and I have some sacrifice, and I've dedicated myself to something, and I'm plugged into what we're offering here at St. Charles, and the life of the parish, and versus the ones where I'm kind of going through the motions, and for many of us, we're not aware at times of what liturgical season, what day of the week it is, let alone what liturgical season it is. And I know for myself, I can even come to Vespers on a Sunday evening during Lent and kind of just be going through the motions. So I think that's the example for those experiences of Lent that are not so good, and at the very beginning of this season, it's a good opportunity to sit back and as in our first reading, we talk about that concept of listening to our faith, and the line actually that really strikes me is it talks about blessings of that you'll live and grow numerous, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you're entering to occupy. And then if, however, you turn away your hearts and will not listen, but are led astray and adore and serve other gods, I tell you that you will certainly perish. And I always read these and think of the time in my life where I would have looked at this very literally and dramatically, and serve those other gods, and thought about like the things that are obvious, and for some of us, perhaps this is the time to say, like, hey, there's something that I'm doing that's really unhealthy that I'm going to really make this effort and put aside. But for many of us, it's a relevant question for every person watching, in my opinion. What are the other gods we serve? And it's not always an obvious one. I think for myself, I think about where we are right now, in a time where there are still a lot of restrictions, and while we're offering a lot here in youth ministry, it's a fraction of what normally this time of year I would be able to provide, and it's a different thing. And my kids aren't doing as much with sports and extracurriculars at home, and yet somehow my calendar is still really full, and I still have the same complaint that the days never seem like there's enough time, and so that other God, when I think about it, that I serve is an issue of scheduling. It's an overscheduled life. It's the temptation to forget to prioritize my faith, to wake up each day, or to even end each day, and intentionally plan for the following day, so that I know that I'm dedicating myself, especially, as they say, turn away your hearts and will not listen. Lent has always been a time for me where it's less about talking and more about listening. And I want to make sure that I'm careful that for my own spiritual journey, through this season, is that I'm dedicating myself to spending that time where I can show up and I can listen to where my faith is calling me. So today, still the beginning of a season, and I think the invitation that we have today to really consider is how are we preparing ourselves and dedicating ourselves to this time of year, and to ask ourselves, serving those other gods, what does that look like in my own life? In our own lives, what is that? However subtle it might look like, we all have those things that distract us from our faith, and they're not always a negative thing, but it's about just saying during this time of year, how can I be really careful to prioritize this and put this front and center? So I hope you are well, and I hope that some of the things that we're able to provide during Lent are things that whether it's in person or virtual, I hope that you can join us for. And until next week, I hope you are well.